Hey, this is John Stewart, CEO and co-founder of Fastbreak.ai, and this is the Sports Business Conversations podcast from ADC Partners.
Hey, this is Dave Almy of ADC Partners, and thanks for stopping by to check out this latest episode of the Sports Business Conversations podcast. Now, I'm sure you'll be excited to know that my guest is John Stewart. No, not that John Stewart. And yes, my John Stewart gets that a lot. My John Stewart is the co-founder and CEO of Fastbreak.ai. And in many ways, my John Stewart has had as much of an impact as the other one. You see, in 2019, John sold his logistics optimization startup to Salesforce. Looking for a new challenge, he harnessed his expertise in growing AI capabilities to tackle a truly daunting task: streamlining sports scheduling. In just a couple years, John and Fastbreak.ai are managing league-wide schedules for more than half of the world's top pro sports leagues, including the NBA, NHL, MLS, Premiership Rugby, the Australian National Rugby League, and more. And with pro leagues more or less conquered, John and his team are casting their gaze toward a truly challenging, but potentially lucrative target: the $60 billion youth sports industry. In our chat, John and I review his entrepreneurial journey and discuss what drew him to sports scheduling as his next challenge. We also dig into bringing Fastbreak.ai to market, the decision to pursue a top-down strategy with the pros to open up youth sports, and his essential insights into using AI to work faster and pivot quicker. So thanks for listening in on my conversation with John Stewart, co-founder and CEO of Fastbreak.ai. Hope you enjoy. John, I think it's fair to say that you're somewhat of an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, I would even throw in there. Was that true even when you were a kid? Were you the lemonade stand on the corner kind of guy?
I wasn't the lemonade stand on the corner type of guy, but I love to work, always have loved to work. So I started, my first job was when I was 12 years old, mucking out horse stalls.
Oh, that's as far from what you're doing now as one could possibly imagine.
Fair enough, but it is, it's good from a work ethic standpoint.
Sure.
Really lets you appreciate it when you can ease your work. And then my next job was as a dishwasher at a pizza restaurant. So I did, in fact, work my way
when you are going up to the dishwasher at the pizza restaurant, you started low.
Yes, but my first entrepreneurial sort of experience was buying and selling comic books. So I figured out how to make money doing that. And so that became my first foray into entrepreneurship.
Were you like the keeping them in the plastic sealed bags kind of guy, or?
Absolutely, I was.
Yeah, okay. Keeping them mint conditions.
Bags with backs, and I did a whole business out of trading them back and forth.
Yeah.
I was able to get one of my sons into sports cards. My youngest son, Connor, he loves that, and I did have enough. My one son Nick, when he turned 18, I still had about 4,000 comic books that I turned over to him. Stuff from the silver age of Marvel, and so some that are pretty valuable at this point.
I would think so. You got to keep those in some place where they're really safe. When did the technology thing really start to get its hooks into you, right? Because we're talking about mucking out horse stables, working as a dishwasher, selling comic books. Was technology always something that was riding shotgun along with these, or did it come to you later?
No, it was. Actually, it was a love of planes. So it was fascinated by airplanes, wanted to figure out how to design them, build them. So engineering was the field that I went to. I'm actually a mechanical engineer, did work in the aerospace industry. And I'm a pilot even today. I still fly myself from to quite a few places. So it was really my love of aircraft, the design of aircraft, fighter jets, wanted to be involved in that industry. And that really moved me towards technology. So I went to WPI, Worcester Polytech, mechanical engineer by degree. I worked as an engineer in the aerospace industry for a while. And that was actually my first company. I formed an engineering services firm for the military, space and defense industry in 2000. 2003. I sold that in 2009 before moving into software.
And then software, you developed your own company there, Map Everything, sold that to Salesforce. Kind of the quintessence. I mean, am I getting that right?
Close. Map anything, everything. but yes.
Come on, there's an engineer's attention to detail right there. Get the name of the company right, Almy, for Pete's sakes. Sold that to Salesforce. It's kind of the quintessential success story in that regard. When did sports start getting on your radar? When did you start thinking that there was an opportunity to apply your skills that you developed in that capacity for that vertical?
Well, credit to where credit's due. That would be my co-founder, Chris Grower. So when I was running Map Anything, we were a field sales, field service, schedule and route optimization company. One of the issues was that a new routing and scheduling engine hadn't been designed and built in, I don't know, since the 90s. It was Israeli Army for logistics. And so
legacy stuff.
Legacy stuff. Nothing off the shelf would work for the problem. And I started researching this area of science, came across an individual that introduced me to Chris. And Chris at the time was working in-house on having built the in-house system that the NBA currently uses. Okay. And Chris had a passion for sports scheduling for a long time. Now, he is a doctor. He's a PhD in optimization research and combinatorial mathematics. Smart guy. And, also sort of a Renaissance man, plays the violin, was a professional tennis player.
Jeez.
Yeah, I know, right? Makes us all feel a little
so lazy.
A little short. So he, it was one of the recruiting tools I used, which was to say that, look, come join me at Map Anything, help me build the next generation routing and scheduling engine that we would need for these large scale field sales problems. And then one day we'll take a look at actually building a software company around sports scheduling.
So it's like, let's put that one on the shelf for a little bit to focus on this. And then once that domino falls, we can move on to that right. More passion play.
More passion play, exactly. So now I always thought we would spin it out of Map Anything. Instead, Salesforce bought us in May of 2019. I had a 3-year non-compete, but in that time, I spent a lot more time with my kids. They're youth travel sports. I have 5 boys.
Oh, sweet mother.
Yeah, exactly. From ages 23 down to 14.
There are people listening to this right now who've just flinched in their chair, pulled their earbuds out of their ear to be like, oh my God.
But they all of them play travel sports and still are with my 2 youngest. I got a lacrosse player still. And so, realized that this was as big an issue for youth as it is professional. But when my non-compete was up, Chris approached me and said, look, let's do this thing. We formed the company Fastbreak. That was July 7, 2022. Now, from my perspective, putting sort of the investor's cap on, the businessman's cap on, love the idea of doing it. But holistically speaking, professional sports is really not that big of an ecosystem.
It's really not. It's hard to scale if you're just looking at pro sports.
Correct. So even from day one, our vision was always, we'll use professional sports to really work out and develop the AI technology. Then we'll bring it down market with the brand gravitas of having all the pro sports leagues and apply it to youth, which is what we're rapidly doing right now. So, again, if you look at it, by the time you get to the 100th largest sports league, and at that point, I think you're maybe dealing with power slap and professional pillow fighting. You're sub 5 million in revenue, right? And there's a huge drop off in revenue by the time you get to the 20th largest sports league. And so, from a business scale standpoint, I think of scale businesses as a business that can get itself to 100 million in revenue, something that's public company possible, let's say.
Yep.
You really do need to tap into the youth marketplace, which currently I know a lot of people who listen to your podcast probably saw that Times article recently, front page, youth sports is a $40 billion industry. Yeah. Actually, they got the number wrong. It's actually 70 billion.
It's bigger than that. Yeah.
Well, they weren't including travel in that, but when you include travel in that, it's a 70 billion composite marketplace is what Americans spend on, their kids' sports. Never underestimate what a parent is willing to spend on letting Johnny chase his NBA dream. Right?
I got to be honest with you, John. This is the first example I've ever heard, of an entrepreneur saying the goal is to get the big pro teams as not so much the end goal, but the start goal. right? But to your point, like once you've got them, was it hard to break into them? I mean, those major professional sports leagues can be pretty insular.
They're very insular.
And so I'm interested in how, from a sales perspective, you were able to access those top tier content, top tier partners.
So of that top 90 professional sports leagues, we have 50 of them currently, about 51. Mm-hmm.
No, you are the market leader.
So the way we did it is this. Obviously, because of Chris and Tim, my other co-founder, Tim Carnes, we already had a relationship with the NBA. And so that was sort of the easy one to get back in the door. Chris and Tim had basically built that entire system. And so the credibility was already established. And at the time,
they were a known quantity at that point.
Known quantity. Plus, it was good timing because, as you recall, in 2022, they wanted to do this thing called the in-season tournament.
Yeah.
And the legacy system that they were using in-house was not designed to do the in-season tournament. So we were able to apply our technology to help them solve that problem. And that was sort of got us kickstarted. As a result of working the NBA, as well as some of the legacy relationships that Chris had, he used to do some of the college conference schedules at his sort of kitchen table. I'm not going to say pen and paper because it's all computer algorithms, but we were able to establish a foothold there. Now, It is very insular, and it's where we had relationships. We won over, like the NHL, we just won over because the NBA was using it. We were able to prove a very similar problem. They literally have a very similar problem. Won additional college conferences. The bigger leagues, though, it became an acquisition strategy. So I've purchased 4 companies, 2 of them in the pro sports space. One of them was Optimal Planning, and Optimal Planning had the relationship with the NFL and Major League Baseball, and they had half of Major League Soccer. Mm-hmm. We won the other half of Major League Soccer. So that was Major League Soccer, and then there was Major League Soccer Next Pro.
Mm-hmm.
And then over in Europe, really hard to build a footprint. We bought the market leader over there. So we've consolidated expertise as well. Working for the company directly or through the relationship through acquisition, we have 11 PhDs and scheduling experts on staff that work on these problems, on the engine that
we've got 11 PhDs on the podcast as well. They're the ones who helped me put this entire show together, John. It's an impressive thing.
Oh, thank you. You did it.
But I guess that's kind of the pieces that have to fall into place for you, isn't it? Right? It's the established relationship with the NBA, and let's face it. I mean, if you're going to start with a pro league on a technology endeavor or something new, the NBA is not a bad place to start, right? I think that's kind of the brand that they've established from themselves from a business operations standpoint.
They're very innovative, very, very innovative. They're very technology forward. Their leadership there understands how technology plays in. They're always ahead of the curve in terms of marketing the league, marketing the stars. They're super impressive from that regard. Really have a good mind for strategy. The main guy we work with is Evan Wash. He's responsible for some of that strategy and very ahead of the game at all times, whether it comes to trying new technologies. And they understand it's a competitive marketplace. There's a lot of content out there to consume now. There's a reason why it seems like there's another new sports league popping up every other day, right? And so you're in a competition.
I believe power slap and pillow fighting were brought up earlier as key examples.
By the way, for those people who on your podcast who think I made those up, they should go to YouTube and Google power slap.
They are not made up, and the power slap makes me flinch every time I watch it.
But the one that makes me laugh is that pillow fighting example. But they know there's we're in a attention economy now. That's what it is, and competition for the live eyeballs. And what's credit to them that they're not resting on their laurels, right? They're always trying to innovate. They're always trying to try something new. So a lot of respect for the way that league operates.
Can you explain, John, just why scheduling for sports organizations, both pro all the way down to youth in your perspective, why is it so fraught? Because I saw in a Forbes interview, you said scheduling in general is the art of equally managing disappointment. Mm-hmm. You want to make sure everybody equally hates you. Why is that the case? Why is it so hard?
Well, depending on the level of sports, there's different reasons for that. But we can start at the highest level and work our way down, right? So going back to professional.
Yep.
The reason the scheduling is so fraught is that it's one of the biggest drivers on viewership. Viewership is the drivers on the value of the media rights deal. And understand that professional sports leagues are not sports leagues; they're media right content creators.
Yeah.
And so that's the driver. So there's, these leagues that we've worked with, they spend weeks, months, sometimes trying to optimize for their customers. And their customers are not you and I. Their customers are ESPN, ABC, CBS, Fox. And so they really are concerned with making sure that they're delivering, in the optimal amount of eyeballs. Because look, every 10 years or every 7 years, a new media rights conversation starts, and that's what really drives those increases. So a lot of time and thought and consideration is put into that.
Right. It's why on Christmas Day or on Thanksgiving, you're not seeing the 28th and 29th ranked teams on those showcase things. The schedule is built around what are going to be the most attractive events to generate the most potential eyeballs, right? Increasing media rights values along the way.
And then after that, you have to take into consideration, so obviously you've got your eyeballs, and then you take into consideration, fairness of schedule, rest patterns, things that are to keep the league competitive, because if the leagues are not competitive, people will get bored. No one likes being in a situation where anyone's disadvantaged so that they're always going to have a losing start to the season, or that loses viewership as well. So it becomes second order function of not fair competitiveness is you lose eyeballs. So you have to sort of keep all of that in mind.
Right. We can't have the Sacramento Kings playing 6 night games back to back to back to back to back.
Exactly. And you know, exactly right. And you can't, I'm a massive Charlotte, Carolina Panthers fan along with the Hornets fan. And, you wouldn't want, for example, the Panthers to get a murderer's row of, okay, go play Kansas City, then Philly, then Dallas, like right down the line. It creates a situation where it's, these murder row situation is something that the leagues are cognizant of.
Yeah. But you're never going to make everybody happy, right? Everybody's always going to find something wrong with the schedule. Correct. So it's all about balancing that level of displeasure.
Correct. So on the pro level, it's all about the eyeballs, right?
Yeah.
You step down a level into college. Let's talk about college for a second. Look, I think we all acknowledge that college sports is now professional sports where everybody's on a 1-year deal, whether it's the coach, the AD, the players. And so
ultimate free agency.
For them, there's a funny saying for college coaches. I've had even college coaches tell me this. There are good coaches and bad schedules. That's all there is. Right? So, they're all very sensitive to how they get off to the season, their win-loss record, how much rest they have before they play. Are they playing, do they get the unfortunate of playing 3 teams in a row that are coming off buys? Like things like that. That's rest pattern disparity. And because their jobs literally depend on that, right? In a way, even I think more so than the professional level. So there are same thing, and there's motivations there, and that's from Power 5. You go to a second tier or third tier conference. Well, it's cost of actually the program. So
it's logistics.
Flying people from one coast and back and forth or crossing time zones is expensive. And believe it or not every sport into the college level is a money sport. They don't get paid for every sport, right?
Very few of them, actually.
Yeah, women's field hockey, not to pick on that, it doesn't make them money. And you know what? And neither does men's volleyball. But they still have those sports, and so logistics costs become an issue.
So there's so many. When we start having this conversation, we start talking about competitiveness and logistics and balance and coaches' input, and that is use the word. That's a lot of inputs. That's a lot of variables going into creating a very, very complex format for these teams to play. So I'm almost terrified to ask this question. Can you talk about the development of the technology in as layman terms as you possibly can? Like, did it come together fairly simply? Did you have so many variables that it was like, oh my God, we need to wait for the next development of AI to help produce this? Like, what was that process like?
Some of what we're doing is applying techniques from other industries that have done for a long time, whether it's manufacturing floor optimization, or even in our prior life where it was traveling salesperson, traveling service technician type problems. And so those general principles do apply to what would be a multi-variable optimization problem.
Right.
Right. So, with regard to sports, what makes it interesting is what we tell people is we have hard constraints and soft constraints. And a better way to think about it is you've got a rule and you've got a preference. Rules may never be violated, no matter what.
Okay. This is something that has to be.
Has to be, right? A rule would be arena availability. If the arena is not available on that day, it simply can't have something
There's
scheduled.
no plane in the parking lot.
No plane in the parking lot. Exactly. So that's a rule. On the flip side, you've got a preference. A preference is just something you'd like to see happen or would prefer not to see happen.
Yeah. Minimize Tuesday night games.
Minimize Tuesday night games. Exactly. Now, the ones that are preferences can have, I prefer this one more versus this one. And the way we express that is we could say with a penalty score, as an example. If I say that minimize Tuesday nights is a 1,000, right? And I've got minimize Thursday nights is a 500, you might infer correctly that one on Tuesday nights is twice as important as a one on Thursday night. So we use scoring as a way to indicate, basically preference.
Weights and balances.
Weights and balances.
Right. And then you can probably say, okay, if I'm going to have a preference, this preference is way more important than this preference. So we can sort of balance it out that way.
And you can even do what we call would be a non-linear, right? That's a linear approach, which is to say every time you violate one of those preferences, right? Now its score goes from 500 to 1,000 to 2,000 because computers will simply say, well, I'll violate this one twice for every once I violate that one.
Right.
So there is a balance that you have to basically design into the system. Now, here is the problem.
Oh my God, we're just getting to the problem now?
Human beings, right? Human beings will say this is something, someone may say something, but their actions will indicate something else, right? So there's a bias there, and that's where some AI comes into play. So something that you might tell me is really, really important. If I give you an eye test, what might come out of that eye test is, not so much. So a lot of the AI that we do is around actually training our models with human input. Is this a better trip than that? How about
so
this
is that like a qualitative scoring on the part of somebody looking at the schedule to be able to evaluate it, or is it something a little bit more deeper than that?
That is a subjective opinion of, say, a person at a league, right? That has actual qualitative, it may be 4 qualitative points or maybe 14 qualitative points.
Okay,
that. But what we're using to do is doing this sort of eye test method. Is we're training the model and we're taking the human bias out of it. Because again, their choices will be a reflection of how they feel, but there's actual things behind it that make up that composite. And by doing that, we can actually train the model what they actually want. Right? There's things that they say that can never happen, and then there's the things that they're actually willing to live with and accept. And so that's the careful balance that you can actually, sort of get a machine to think like a human.
The last thing a machine wants to do is think like the bag of cats that's going up between my ears. Were the leagues open to this process from the standpoint of comfort level turning it over to a machine to develop this? Did they want more human oversight input into it? Or is it just, it depends on the league?
Well, I think the leagues, so our system, if you will, still requires the league to get input from all the stakeholders, whether it's the arena's availability, the media rights partners with either the contractual obligations or their preferences, the teams, the team requests, and the ability to define all these rules around trips. So that part is all done by the human being. So they're setting up the problem. And then our solution, our solver, if you will, we don't just solve for a schedule. Here is, 20 schedules. All meet the rules, but then various level of your preferences. And then that gives the league the opportunity to interact, move things around, interact with it while we're resolving, and then they can finalize it. So, or repair it, if you will, if something, basically they just have to repair a certain section of it. So it's sort of a pre-process, solve, post-process system. So there is still interaction. So they're not really giving up that much control. We're just doing the hard part we're hearing everything you say. We're interpreting some of that. And here's your options. Here's your vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, butter pecan.
Right. Which one feels like it's going to be the best flavor for you?
Exactly. It's all ice cream. It all tastes good. Now you tell me which one tastes better.
Every podcast I can have an ice cream analogy is instantly a good podcast right there. So thank you for that, John. I mean, the client roster, like we've talked about, it's about as robust as it gets, particularly at the professional level. Right? We've got the NBA, WNBA, NHL, MLS, Serie A, Premiership Rugby. I mean, so this is now an international company working with leagues and teams all over the place. Can you talk about some of the results that they've started to experience by adopting Fastbreak.ai into their operations? And were there some that were more challenging to put into place than others based on how they operate?
There definitely were some that are more challenging. There are certain things I can say, certain things I can't for the type of customers.
Yeah.
We'll tell you, here's a good example. National Rugby League. They just recently came on. For those unfamiliar, in Australia, the NRL is basically the NFL here, although they do have an AFL, which is Australian Football League, which is an insane sport.
It is not for the faint of heart.
It is not. Your viewers should all YouTube a clip on Australian Football League. Yeah. It's nuts.
NFL players look at that and say, not a chance.
Not for me. Exactly. But NRL, they had a very complicated situation about, these 5-day rest patterns. And we showed them, before they signed an agreement that we're able to eliminate them. And that's a big thing from a fairness of play, injury, all that stuff. So I think that's a good example of it. I think we can just get them more of what they want, because the other methods before us, whether they were consultants or some commercial off-the-shelf software for optimization, they were never actually able to achieve more of the things they want. Now, here's the rub. As the media rights deals have gone up in value, as you can imagine, if you're paying more for something, you're going to have more requests. So balancing these requests has become more and more complicated. And I think what we're able to do, and where they really see the benefit, is that they're able to meet all those requests and still produce good quality, fair schedules.
Right. So the balance is going to be there the entire time. So you've now established, I mean, it's clearly you've gone beyond establishing yourself as the big dog in sports scheduling. And now that have this proven product that, I mean, is obviously still continuing to grow, as we talked about, there's a lot more places to be able to take this. Are there other aspects of team operations that you're eyeing that you feel like are ripe for AI to change the way leagues are operating?
Sure. So at the league level, we're doing a lot with viewership prediction now. We have a new technology coming out next year. You can license, and maybe it's not widely known, or maybe it is, but you ever turn on a brand new flat screen television set, and then you sit there and go next.
Just did that 2 weeks ago.
Did you ever read what's in those agreements?
Generally, yes, every letter.
Okay. Well, then that the hardware providers are collecting what you watch in 15-second increments.
Yep.
And we license data like that, and using that data, we're actually able to build a very good viewership prediction model. Now, where this matters is the sports leagues. It's another tool for them to use during the scheduling to actually figure out how they optimize for that attention or those eyeballs. So that's something that we've been working on for a couple of years now, that we bring to market next year. There's a lot of interest in that at the professional level. And then at the team levels, because we have access at the league, we can get to the teams. We're actually releasing a suite. We're working with some NBA clubs right now. They go into beta next month on sort of a schedule optimization for the back office operation for NBA clubs. And that's stuff like, practice, the segments they do on the day-to-day, their travel schedules, all of it. So sort of automating and using the same type of AI scheduling to be as efficient as possible for them. So that's also at the pro level. And then we've doing some interesting things recently specific to certain sports. We did a project for the Jockey Club. The only reason I'm bringing it up is they posted our presentation on YouTube, so I guess it's public knowledge. But we showed.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
For those of you not watching the video, there was maybe a casual eye roll on the part of John right there.
Basically, what we showed through the use of our technology, that we can have an influence on the gambling the handle, which is gambling.
Okay, yeah.
by reducing the overlap for races as a knob to pull. So, reducing the overlap by 3% of all the, systematically looking at every horse race that goes on in this country at the same time, we can actually optimize that schedule, adjust it in these windows to make sure that no one's really overlapping, or at least reducing the overlap by about 20%. That drives a 3% increase in handle. Now that's
and if we're talking about 3% increase on the handle for horse racing, pretty soon you're going to be starting to talk about some pretty sizable numbers.
It's $360 million plus or minus 30 million. So it's so there you go, kids. This is the
math does it again.
That's a really interesting project.
Yeah,
that we're where it's applicable. So there's a lot of areas and there's a lot of other things on the pro side that we're having conversations. What's really kind of cool is because of the brand that we developed, the brand gravitas, we're out there in the public domain. We have a lot of really cool inbound projects now from professional sports leagues and teams. They want us to take a look at, see if the science is applicable.
Oh, I'm assuming that they found you solved this challenge for them. They're probably throwing a lot of different things at you. If you can do this, then maybe you can take a look at that. You're becoming the AI guru, for lack of a better term, for sports in a certain respect.
I think that's fair. Sure. Yeah. And we're happy to play that role, and we love what we do. So
yeah. Can you talk? We've talked obviously a lot about pro sports, but to your earlier point, youth sports is this massive business opportunity that I think a lot of organizations are trying to figure out how to get to, right? Because whereas the pro sports are sort of small and highly concentrated, youth sports is, I think, can be best described as atomized. I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of organizations that are involved with the decision-making around youth sports. How do you effectively attack that particular market? Is it leveraging the brand relationship you have at the high level and using that as the magnet, or do you have a process that allows you to do that more efficiently?
Well, you are very correct about the extreme fragmentation in youth sports, and that's been the bane of most technology companies in the space. So the investment world has a expression they call it a zombie company, which is a company that has gotten to a certain size but can't scale, but at the same time can't grow, and so they're just sort of stuck. And the extreme fragmentation in youth sports has resulted in a plethora of these types of companies because, youth sports is not a monolith. It breaks down from, first of all, before you even get to individual sports, it's scholastic, your school sports, or community sports like your YMCA, your Little League, or your travel, your elite travel, your tournament sports, adult sports. That's just one dividing line. Then you've got seasonality, male, female. You have it by sports: basketball, baseball, football, lacrosse, dancing, gymnastics. It goes on and on and on. And so most technology providers, when they enter space, the first thing they normally tell an entrepreneur is focus, 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 right? That's normally what you do. The challenge is if you focus on what you know or one segment, you develop a lock-in. So if we're talking about something like video streaming is a great example of this. If you ask me who the leader in youth sports is for video streaming, I have to ask you, are you talking about high school? Because that's Huddle. If you're talking about ice hockey, that's Barn Door. If it's basketball, it's Feed the Beast or Baller TV. But if you're talking about baseball, well, then that's Game Changer. You can literally have to identify the segment. And that's true of every point need in the whole space: registration, payments, compliance, insurance, facilities. I have this grid of...
I'm breaking it in hives.
It is very, very challenging. So the way we've gone to market, the way we've attacked it is said, okay, first, where can we leverage our brand gravitas? Who has the most challenging scheduling problem? And what we identified is the operators of these large-scale tournaments. These tournaments, if you have kids who play sports, you know about these things. You show up for 2 days or 3 days, and there's 400 teams there. There's 12 locations. That is a challenging scheduling problem. In some cases, it can be as challenging as a professional problem. And, we have a unique set of IP that you wouldn't develop for the youth sports marketplace. But hey, we developed it from the pro leagues. We might as well leverage it down here. And so we get to use the same engine to get in with these operators. And the next thing we did is we identified that we're not going to be a point solution. And we've been building out our single business in a box or platform such that even today, our platform currently does 7 things that would normally require 7 logins. But today their website, their e-commerce, their registration, their scheduling, their scoring, their travel, their electronic ticketing, and their data content provider. So that's 8 things out of the 31 lines of revenue or operational needs that a tournament operator has to have to run a scale tournament. And remember, these tournaments are basically small businesses that set up and break down in the course of 2 days to 8 days.
Yeah, and I'm assuming most of them are run by people who got into it because they love the sport and they wanted to, 100%. Provide an opportunity for kids to do this, and they get into the middle of it and doing it, and maybe it goes from an 18 tournament, and then the next thing they know, they've got 32 teams coming in, and the next year it's 64, and it scales far beyond what their initial capabilities and capacity is.
And they never built out infrastructure, and they never thought of. They're a victim of their own success.
Right.
And now the car's doing 60 miles an hour and they're trying to change a tire while the car's going 60. It's a challenging problem. And we can come in with our expertise. And from this regard, my experience in the enterprise software space, right, is I would say the big advantage you would do is you have these platform plays, whether it's a Salesforce, SAP, Oracle, Microsoft. We can be that for these tournament operators. We can give them the operating platform, and then all their individual needs, we plug into it. Now they have a single source of truth, a single source of data, and we're just picking off the individual needs that they have to satisfy, to give a better experience to their customers, lower the cost to their customers. One of the things we do with our travel is we lower the cost of hotel travel for the attendees of the tournaments. And they make more money, they operate more efficiently, their customers have a better experience, and we can do this. And honestly, I think we're the only ones in the space actually doing it. It's an enterprise software playbook brought to the youth marketplace, leveraging our IP and technology and our brand gravitas to the pro level. So we have some unique tools to work with. If another company wanted to do this, I'm not sure they could, because we do have some advantages built in at this point.
Mm-hmm. As we get wrapping up here, John, this is probably the golden age of sports and technology right now, certainly in terms of startups, right? There are no shortage of companies out there that are looking to access the markets that you are currently paddling around in. As someone who has had success bringing both non-sports technology companies up to conclusion and acquisition, I'm wondering what advice you have for other people out there that are looking to develop tools or applications or use technology to reach the sports market in an effective way. Are there any thoughts that you have, any advice that you can share?
Sure. I would tell you in this day and age, what's critical and key is speed. You cannot move slow anymore. Technology is no real advantage, which is a weird thing for me to say, where we have unique IP on the scheduling end. But how fast you're able to move, adjust, adapt to the marketplace will dictate your success, right? That's your only moat. So it's speed plus the brand you develop equals your moat. And so you really need to be willing to pivot quickly, embrace all the new technology. I'll tell you right now, we have a smaller dev team with 7 individual products here than going back a decade ago. We would have had 130 developers to support. In fact, we had 45 developers to support 2 products. And now we have a significantly smaller number to support, basically 8. And so embracing technology. So we're not just an AI company with the product we deliver. We're full AI across the board. It's how we develop, how we produce marketing material. It's everything. It's how we live.
It's all the things that you're also talking about too, like speed to pivot, speed to market is, I'm assuming, assisted by the fact that you can be a much leaner organization. It's maybe not the best news for people who are studying computer science and coding right now at higher levels, but it certainly does, if you're a business operator, allow you to make decisions and move much more quickly, because you can disseminate that strategy change amongst, to your team, 7 people.
100%. That it is. I'm not sure I would tell anybody to go into computer science. I think, go into psychology only from the standpoint of understanding how people think and interact with systems. I would say the creative side, the user experience, so graphic design, UI, UX development would be another place. Almost all coding now is moving towards what's called vibe coding. Dave, you could sit down today and if I told you the tool set to use, you could describe a software system, and the tools will literally build that system. So,
My head exploding.
It's where we're at, and that's didn't really. It was in its infancy a year ago. It didn't exist 2 years ago. Imagine where we'll be in 2 years from now.
Yeah, it's just really, I'm going to think of something and it's going to spring up on my screen almost.
Yeah, and so the very nature of a guy like a company like us is that, you have to be willing to embrace these type of technology changes, and ultimately it's better for the customers. We could be much more responsive to our customers' requests and features and functions. We move at a pace. If I was to show you, for example, our ticketing platform, right? There's 37 electronic ticketing providers out there. There's 3 what we call whales, 1 intermediate, and the rest are smaller minnows. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm sorry to break them that way, but you could get through the
this is a quick whiteboard strategy session.
Right. Exactly. So there's a Ticketmaster, a StubHub, a SeatGeek. Those are whales, and then you've got your intermediates like a Vivid Tickets, and then after that, there's everyone else, and you've seen them. That's the GoFan and the Eventbrite, and you know all these players, or you've seen at least who I'm talking about.
Bought tickets from them.
I bought tickets from them. In the time that we started developing on the platform, identifying the need, understanding that we had a captive audience in our operators and that the operators needed a ticketing platform, we closed a feature gap all the way up to, in some cases, where the whales are, and we did it in 6 months. Right. And by the way, and this is, last weekend, our ticketing platform was used to sell across multiple operators 14,000 tickets. So this is in production in the field.
This is happening now. You're taking money for tickets.
Exactly. Our operators are using our platform. Yeah. That was that whole cycle, A, I don't think would have been possible. And B, would have taken years to do. Years. And so that is sort of what you have to be able and willing to do if you're going to be in the technology space, whether it's sports, logistics, business operations, refrigeration, plumbing supplies. It doesn't really matter. This day and age is here. AI is here. I try to tell people all the time, AI is not going to take your job, right? Who's going to take your job is the person who uses AI to do your job. So we all need to embrace it. I'm sure there's tools that you can use to do the editing and the clips and develop segment.
This is all done on magnetic tape, John. I have a razor blade that I use to cut everything off. I'm old school, brother.
That's old school.
Hey, I'm with John Stewart. He's the CEO and co-founder of Fastbreak.ai. Look, this conversation has covered a lot of ground. I think it is simultaneously fascinating and terrifying to think about how much change is going to take place and how much the sports that we know and love are going to both benefit from it and be impacted by it. So, John, I want to say thank you for the time. But before I let you go, I'm going to dump you into the lightning round.
All right.
A series of questions for you. Just give me the first thing that pops into your mind. Are you ready?
Ready.
God, spoken like a true engineer. He's ready to roll. We talked about, you received your Bachelor in Science in Mech from a Polytechnic Institute located in Western Massachusetts. John, please pronounce the name of that university as a true Massachusetts resident would.
Worcester Polytechnic Institute.
Very good. Yes, Worcester Polytech. You got to pack your car in the lot there. You got to take care of it. All right, Worcester. Right, for those of you who aren't. What are the number of times you could have been confused with the host of The Daily Show?
Oh my God. I can't even count it anymore. It's a joke that everyone feels compelled to make at some point. I sort of lean into it now.
Yeah. I will also say that this podcast host did not once reference it during our conversation until we got to the lightning round, which is sort of that free for all.
Thank you so much. And by the way, I don't mind. It's funny. You lean into it.
Like we talked about, you sold Map Anything to Salesforce for a kingly sum of money. What was the one ridiculous thing you bought yourself after the deal was done?
Ridiculous thing that I bought myself. Well, I don't know if there's been anything ridiculous that I bought, but my favorite thing that I did was I did set up, and I know this is going to sound weird, but I did set up a donor advised foundation with a bunch of money, and especially during COVID, I'm able to write a lot of $5,000 and $10,000 checks to people who need it. And that's the thing I enjoy the most. How about that? As opposed to the thing that I bought the most.
Because as opposed to some sort of thing, it hits the soul in a good spot.
It makes you feel better about you, believe it or not. Giving, and I will tell you that giving away or charity is really not about the person you're helping. It's about how it makes you feel, right? Selfishly. So enjoyed that. So that was probably the single largest purchase I made, actually, was the setting
DAF.
up setting up the DAF. Actually, it absolutely was a single individual unit of thing. But
all right, good answer, John.
But I did, look, I'm a pilot. I had a small single engine plane, a Cessna. I upgraded to a Cirrus, rather. I upgraded to a multi-engine plane. How about that?
There you go. Now we're talking. All right, that's a good upgrade right there. All right, so we got a good dual answer right there. Favorite sport to play today?
To play today, or to watch or to play?
To play today.
Man, I am old and out of. You can't see that.
Maybe watching sports on TV is what counts now.
So my favorite sport to watch on TV is NFL football, of course. My favorite sport to watch in the stadium is NHL hockey. There's no better sport.
There's no better sport live. It's the truest. It's the truest of the true things in sports.
And I think the sport to play. Oh man, I don't really play one. And by the way, when I was an athlete in high school. And these don't really translate to being an adult. I was a wrestler and a pole vaulter. So there's no really adult pole vaulting league. And
that might be a first.
There would be a first. There's no real adult.
Combine those. If we can figure out how to pull off wrestling pole vaulting, that would be something else. All right, last one. You've got 5 kids. We've said you have 5 boys. So first of all, the amount of spackle and hole repair for your walls in your house, I can't even imagine. And I'm assuming that no amount of AI is going to make your sports travel any easier. So what is going to be next in the developmental pipeline? Sport parent cloning or tournament teleportation?
Ooh, good one. I think I like the idea of teleportation because it's the travel that kills you. That would be my preference.
John Stewart, thanks for the time today.
Thank you, Dave. I really appreciate you having me. Enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the One-on-One Sports Business Conversations podcast. If you enjoyed it, we always appreciate a subscribe, share, comment, or like. And don't forget, you can always find past episodes at abcpartners.com/podcast. This podcast is written, produced, edited, and hosted by Dave Almy. And theme music was composed by Scott Holmes.